had been my vision for the cafe. I'd firmly resisted commercially produced fare. I'd worked around the clock to avoid it. But the years had taken their toll on my energy and enthusiasm, and if I thought I could get away with it, the current menu would shrink, and even more of the choices on display would be commercially produced. The front door squealed and, regular as clockwork, Audrey Franco came in, clutching her pink to-go mug. Audrey was a volunteer at the op shop around the corner, and my first customer every Tuesday morning. "Good heavens, Ruth! Why on earth don't you put a few drops of oil on those hinges? The door wouldn't make such a dreadful racket." "Good morning, Audrey. With luck, we might see some sunshine this afternoon. The usual?" "Yes, please." She handed over the insulated cup, her gaze firmly fixed on the basket of muffins under the mesh cover. "Are they chocolate chip muffins?" "Blueberry, with fresh blueberries." "Oh, lovely. I can convince myself I'm being halfway healthy if it's fruit rather than chocolate. Have you heard the news?" "I hear a lot of news, Audrey. What specifically?" "Cutlers Bay Financial Services is closing its doors. Graham Worst is retiring at the end of the year," she said with a self-satisfied smirk. "Is that so? I hadn't heard. I wouldn't have thought he was old enough to retire. He's not sick, is he?" "Not to my knowledge," she sniffed. "Besides, how old is old enough to retire? My Reggie was 72 when he eventually downed tools. Now look at him. All he does is sit in front of the telly and watch Netflix and that tube thing." 72. The thought of doing what I was doing for another decade was enough to make my skin prickle. With the lid firmly fixed onto Audrey's flat white with one, I bagged up a blueberry muffin, still warm from the oven. "There you go. Do you think Graham and Marcia will stay put in Cutlers Bay?" "Unlikely," Audrey said with confidence. "Marcia's never made a secret of the fact she thinks we're all a bit rural, and their children and grandchildren live in Adelaide." "What about Graham's clients? What will they do?" "Apparently," Audrey said, leaning in and giving me a close-up of what you did with lipstick when you had no lips, "his son has a similar business in the city, and he'll take on the clients, those who choose not to move elsewhere." "I see. Just how old do you reckon Graham is?" "I'd always put him at around my age, early 60s. Too young to retire." "He's 57, but in my opinion he looks older. And before you ask, Marcia's 60, or so Peg says." "Really?" I said, and tried not to sound as disgruntled as I felt, because Graham was half a decade younger than me and he was retiring. Peg would know. Peg and her husband owned the fish and chip shop, and Peg's vast and real-time knowledge of local goings-on was legend. Basically, if it had happened in Cutlers Bay or surrounds, Peg knew about it. But I'd never thought of her as a gossip. She dispensed information prudently, without elaboration or exaggeration, and by all accounts, if the situation required, she could be stubbornly tight-lipped. "I'd better be on my way," Audrey said after I'd passed over her change and initialed her loyalty card. "I am opening up this morning, and Tuesdays are always frantic." She held the door for the next customers, 2 women who worked in the hospital's administration office. They walked to work and stopped in for coffee on their way. "What'll it be this morning?" I said, and accompanied it with as genuine a smile as I could muster. Only 57 and retiring. How dare he? And so went my morning, the same routine as every other. Mostly takeaway coffees and snacks until mid-morning, when the have-heres out for coffee and a chat trickled in, along with the usual regulars. Theo Adams was one such regular. Tuesday and Thursday mornings on the dot of 9:30, he shuffled in for a milky cappuccino and 2 thickly buttered slices of toasted raisin bread. Another menu choice I used to bake myself. Now it came pre-sliced in a plastic bag. "You're looking bright and chipper, Theo, for an overcast Tuesday morning." "Ruth," he replied, nodding and doffing an imaginary hat. He moved across to his usual table by the window, table 3. I watched and wondered briefly if his gait had worsened. For a moment I thought he might topple over. Then his face relaxed into a rare smile when he spied today's advertiser waiting on the table. I dropped 2 slices.